Do you like a good rolling right? Well, today we're talking about Dice Kingdoms of Valeria as well as the winter expansion. So, what do you need to know about this? If you like rolling rights, give this one a heavy look-see. Let's talk about pros, cons, everything else in between that you need to know in a very short time frame. So the concept is relatively simple, right? Two boards, you're going to be navigating. You have numbers 1 through 12, and you're going to be marking off spots on both of them. Not very complex, everything that you've already seen and everything that you already would expect with such a pattern. But what makes this one stand apart? Well, for starters, you have 2 different boards here that you're going to be managing. And each of those boards has 4 total areas that you're going to be having to navigate on each of your turns. So the concept is relatively simple, right? Roll dice, allocate dice to both of your boards. Rinse and repeat. Where's the nuance here? Well, for starters, you have 6 dice, and these dice come in 4 different colors. 4 different colors plus the blacks that are going to be the harvest phase. Harvest phase is basically like your space base where everybody gets a resource based on what's rolled. And so if you roll these dice, you get a 3-5. So not only do you get to mark whatever's on the 3, mark whatever's on the 5, but you also get the sum of the roll on the 8. Then comes the tricky part. Then you look at these other 3 action spaces, essentially the yellow, the green, and the red, and you have the ability to add or not this blue die to one of them if you so choose. That is the nuance, and that corresponds to the 3 areas that you're going to be dealing with: the monster layers, the overland exploration, or the yellow workers, essentially, that are going to allow you to allocate more of these resources. That's the whole game in a nutshell. You're going to have a few other spaces that you're going to be marking off. You have the workers themselves, they're going to have their spaces. You're going to have special ones in the layers. You're going to have extra green squares that do a little bit over here on the land. It just sort of mitigates and mishmashes, combines all of those across the board. So you're going to be going back and forth from this area to this area to this area to this area, back to this area, and so on and so forth. That's it. The game ends when you've used all of these symbols up here that correspond to the die rolls to fill 3 of these 4 different areas here of all of the marks. Then you tally up who has the most points, rinse and repeat, figure out who's the winner. Now, what else do you do? Well, you get victory points with the little stars, and you'll see them. They're located here. They're located down here along these borders, as well as in certain places over here on the road map, if you will, as well as different places along the layer. But that's not all. We also have a relatively robust set of unique asymmetric objectives that are going to go along with that you only get if you fill up the gold sections over here, giving you another incentive and another way to score in a different variety. But although that sounds like there's a lot going on, it's really simple and complex. And the best part about it is, you know, you fill in a box here, then that gets you a fill in a box couple here. Then these boxes get you to fill in spots down here and over here, or down here and then over here. And so that's the combination of things. So if you like filling out a lot of boxes in your roll and rights and having a lot of activity, even not on your own turn, that's what's really going to appeal to you with this game. The base game, I will say though, it gets a little bit of the same rote without too much variability, just by the nature of the static boards in and of themselves, right? You have to start off at all of these 4 spots up here in the roads, and you have to make your way down. As you meet these landing spots, you can manipulate your dice accordingly, and they're going to give you additional bonuses along the way to get additional worker spots over here. And in case that wasn't clear, with these worker spots, for example, if I have one of these 5s filled out, if I roll a 5, then I look down here where this symbol is, I fill in one of these. If I have 2 of them, I would get to fill in 2. Now, if you roll and you do not have any of those numbers, or the spot is completely filled and you cannot fill up any spots, you get to choose 1 spot of any of these tracks that you want. So that's the game in a nutshell. Now, the winter expansion, I'll say right now, the winter expansion is probably the get-go for me. The winter expansion is probably the better one. And you'll understand that a little bit when I talk about just the main difference here. The main difference being the second board on this right side here, because all of a sudden the roads don't all start at the top, and you can only have access to one of the layers for free, and you have to work your way through the roads to get the layer access that is going to be available in certain spaces here only by these landing spaces once you've accessed them. And that's kind of the cool thing, because you have a little bit of more variety of who's going to go where, how you're going to do it. You know, when you talk about the base game here, yes, all of these are available, but you just kind of have to pick and choose which one you want to go. Now, the basic rule is, obviously, since you have like 6 squares here in this one, that you always start from the left, and you always work your way left to right and then top to bottom. and then you have to have obviously the numbers that go along with these, and you can also get free spots filled, you know, elsewhere that way. The other thing I'll mention for all of you solo gamers is this is actually, you know, as a non-solo gamer, I preferred the base game probably solo because of the nature of the somewhat repetitiveness that you can find yourself in with multiplayer, where it becomes a little bit tight, which is good in a way, but also it becomes a little bit of the same in a way. So I think the solo player version is actually a lot tighter in that sense. But when you have the solo version, what you're going to have are these event cards. If you ever roll these black dice on your first roll, because in the solo version, the one main difference is that you roll all of them, essentially. Then, after you take all of these actions, then you get to roll the black dice a second time and harvest those resources. Now, if on the first roll of these black dice, you get a double, then you have to draw one of these bad event cards. And they're going to cause you to either skip a turn, or they're going to cause you to mark off squares that aren't going to be able to be utilized then for the resources, and so on and so forth. And there's a relatively large section of these cards, as you can see here. And you get up to 6 of those that you can have happen essentially event-wise over a 20-turn round game. That's it. That's Dice Kingdoms of Valeria. That's all I need to say. Like I said, the winter expansion, by far and away, a big improvement. And I would say I would really like just one other thing to give it a little bit more asymmetry in terms of this. The other big asymmetric faction, obviously, is how you're going to be influencing or filling in these spots up here in order to, you know, chase the resources that are going to get you resources down here faster and get them filled up faster, but also potentially end the game faster. And so that's the dynamic that you're always trying to trade off, because these also up here are going to be heavily tied into some of the end game scoring conditions as well, as they're heavily influenced there. All in all, though, it's a very, very pleasant game. I was pleasantly surprised by this. This is the one that my wife even said, hey, I want to play this again. I would be more than happy to play this one again, because although the rule book is a little intimidating, it's because they have literally laid out everything that you need to know in the rule book, and there is no issue with what do you do here? What do you do when this happens? No, I mean, it's just everything in there, and that's also really nice to have, because I can't say that about a lot of games nowadays, especially ones that come from crowdfunding. So Daily Magic Games, yeah, thanks for sending this to me. Again, especially with the winter expansion, I would love to see maybe a little bit more variety overall in terms of, like I said, with the extra winter expansion, with the different layers that are differently accessible. I'd love to see some of that incorporated into a little bit of asymmetry in the other areas on the map. But I mean, that's my biggest criticism. For the price point, for the accessibility, for the ease of play, definitely worth a like and a look-see if you like anything like Roll and Writes, and you're looking for something maybe a slight step up from something like a Cartographers or a Welcome To, but not looking to get into the Hadrian's Walls or your Three Sisters type of depth there as well. So there you go. Check it out. Stay classy. See you around.